speaker today, Professor Dan Tokaji from election law at Moritz at The Ohio State University, who testified yesterday in the House committee.
Thank you, Representative Clyde. First, a couple of notes regarding the capacity in which I'm speaking. First of all, I am not representing or working for any party or candidate, nor am I speaking today on behalf of the Ohio University or our election law project at Moritz Law School. I am speaking strictly on my own behalf. So this bill that the House Government and Elections Committee heard testimony on yesterday is a massive bill. It is over 300 pages long. I'm not sure how many people have carefully read through everything that this bill provides for, but having sat through much of yesterday's hearing, I'm quite sure that many members of the committee have not. We've heard a lot of statements to the effect that an overhaul of Ohio's election laws is long overdue. And by way of context for this, I just want to correct that misperception by providing a little bit about information about our history in the state of the past 10 years. So we had at the federal level, after the 2000 election fiasco, a big piece of federal legislation that was passed in 2002 to help America vote for HAVA. HAVA, of course, didn't correct all problems with our election system. We had a huge number of problems here in the state of Ohio in 2004. After that, the Republican majority in the Ohio legislature adopted another massive overhaul of our election laws, sub HB 3 in 2005. That piece of legislation, on the whole, made it more difficult for people to vote and have their votes counted, and resulted in years of controversy and lawsuits and litigation and court orders. If this bill that is currently before the Ohio House passes, we are going to see the same thing. So what is the big lesson? What is the big lesson from our history in this state and across the country over the past decade? 3 C's. I'm not talking about Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati. I'm talking about the 3 C's that inevitably result when you make major changes to your election law without due consideration. Controversy, confusion, and court fights. That is what we are going to see if this bill becomes law. There are 3 portions of the bill that I want to focus on as especially problematic from the standpoint of making sure that every eligible Ohioan can vote and have his or her vote counted. I listed several others in my testimony yesterday, copies of which I have available to anyone who's interested. The 3 points I want to emphasize today, however, are these. First, it reduces the time and places available for early voting. The availability of early voting, or as it's called in Ohio law, in-person absentee voting, is actually one of the best features of current Ohio law. It allows people to vote before Election Day and even to register and cast their votes simultaneously during the window between 35 and 30 days before the election. This has the effect not only of including more eligible citizens in our democratic process, but of reducing the pressure on polling places on Election Day and therefore the risk of long lines. In short, our current early voting laws allow more people to vote and have their votes counted. This law would decimate that window and drastically reduce the time available for early voting with no good reason. Second, this law eliminates a provision of current, or this proposed bill, I should say, eliminates a provision of current Ohio law requiring poll workers who go to the wrong precinct to direct them to the right precinct. This change is absolutely mystifying. Imagine this scenario. A voter goes to a table at a precinct. Maybe he or she was directed there, maybe the voter just made a mistake. The poll worker knows that this voter is at the wrong precinct and knows what the right one is. But that poll worker doesn't tell the voter. Instead, that voter casts a provisional ballot that won't, under Ohio law, be counted. As I said, it's absolutely mystifying why such a change would be made. Third, the law prohibits election officials from recording information on provisional voting affirmations. Now, I know this may sound very technical, but here's the real world impact. If a voter has to cast a provisional ballot, that voter is required to fill out a form. For many voters, especially those who are illiterate, less educated, or have a disability, it may be difficult for them to fill out that form on their own. I think there's a great likelihood that poll workers, if this amendment to current law is passed, will feel that they are not able to give voters assistance they need, and indeed assistance they are required by federal law to provide to voters in filling out that affirmation. The result of all this, as I said, will be, we can predict safely, years of litigation over the constitutionality of this law and its compliance with federal voting rights laws. You don't need to be an election law professor to figure out what's going on here. The House Republican majority is bound and determined to enact rules that will make it more difficult for eligible citizens to vote. It is thereby attempting to rig the rules of the election game in their favor. If this bill passes, it will be good news for election lawyers, an effective full employment act for them. But it will be bad news for Ohio's voters. Thank you.